Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about what I think is the most ignored zodiac sign. And and it does apply and pertain to the sun, moon, and ascendant. Now, first sign we're going to talk about is Aries. Now, Aries, it would be hard-pressed for me to think they would be the most ignored zodiac sign. Aries, ostentatious would be the word for them, but Aries is very, outgoing, outspoken. They're not as flamboyant as Leo, but Aries is the kind of, is a sign that's about leadership, prowess, and ability, can be actually innovative and pioneering. And it would be hard to really say that Aries is really ignored. Aries, if they don't like someone or something, a lot of people are going to know about it, could be in a loud way. So, I would say no to Aries. Now, going to Taurus, well, Taurus, being a feminine sign, it is introverted. They could be, somewhat passive, timid, gentle, while unprovoked. But when you look at Taurus, Taurus is, very quiet, strength they carry. They make very, loyal, dutiful employees, very steadfast. Taurus is very hardworking too, and people will take notice of that. It's not a sign that's overly gregarious, but I don't. For me to say it's the most ignored sign, well, I'll let you know at the end of the video whether I think it's Taurus or not. Now, Gemini. Gemini is a sign that obviously is very versatile and loquacious and talkative. They'll talk up a storm, on virtually any subject. Gemini is, again, about, socializing, and they, will talk with just about anybody. So I think, for Gemini, being, extroverted or not, it's not a sign I would think would be the most ignored, and they're very, make very good, conversationalists, and can do, so talented at so many things, it would be hard-pressed to ignore Gemini. Now, going to the zodiac sign Cancer. Now, Cancer can be a viable candidate for being the most ignored of the zodiac signs. Now, Cancer is very, introverted. They're dominated by home-related activities. They're a sign, that kind of roams around, their home, and, a lot of times Cancer will, I think, limit themselves at times to, people that they're just really, close with, and home and family members. So because of the lifestyle Cancer may live, they may be the most ignored zodiac sign, but I'll let you know at the end of the video whether I think it's the zodiac sign Cancer or not. Now, Leo would be very hard to say that Leo would be the most ignored of the zodiac signs, because Leo is very extroverted and gregarious. They are the ones that are often like the circus performers, or make the great, dazzling actors or actresses. They often gravitate toward entertainment fields in which they can showcase, their talents, and abilities. They're not really ones that you would call shrinking violets by any means. They're not known or notorious for being reticent. This is a sign of being very flamboyant. It would be hard for me to say that Leo would be, the most ignored of the zodiac signs. So I would definitely say like a resounding no to Leo. Now I'm going to go to Virgo, which can actually be another, viable candidate for being the most ignored of the zodiac signs. Now, Virgo, they have a lot of good qualities. Don't get me wrong, to be very analytical, punctilious with details. But Virgo is often very shy, humble, and reticent. And, Virgo is not one to clamor for, attention, or they're often not interested in accolades or notoriety or recognition. And, Virgo can be, maybe the most ignored of the signs, but however, keep in mind that Virgo is often, very, hard, workers. They're often involved in the workforce, maybe more so than any of the other zodiac signs. So they do, they have the ability to put themselves out there in a way in terms of matters with employment and service. But I'll let you know at the end of the video whether I think it's the zodiac sign Virgo or not. I'm going to Libra. Libra is about intellectual sociability. They're often about relationships, marriage, collaborating with others on projects and endeavors. That Libra is, a masculine or extroverted zodiac sign. So, for Libra, the fact that they're so sociable and they're often, one of the, the people that, like at party, social gatherings that are, talking to many people and, very, you could say very engaging. So I don't think Libra would be the most ignored of the zodiac signs. So next sign up was Scorpio. Well, Scorpio is a very interesting sign, being as complex as they are. Scorpio, as many of you may know, is a feminine or introverted zodiac sign. They can be very secretive and mysterious. They often have trouble letting others in their lives because of the secretive nature of the sign. In fact, they're secretive and mysterious, and also they can be very suspicious and mistrustful of others. But the thing about Scorpio is a little paradoxical, because they are very mysterious and secretive, but because they're also very charismatic and magnetic, and they may unwittingly, attract attention due to their aura that's around them. That's very compelling. So, it's really hard to say whether they would, for me to say that they would be the most ignored of the zodiac signs. Now, going to the zodiac sign Sagittarius. Well, Sagittarius, as many of you may know, can be, very exuberant, expansive, optimistic. They can be very adventurous, often involved in foreign travel. And Sagittarius is a masculine or extroverted zodiac sign. And they're very, often jocular, like to do their practical jokes. They can be one of the lives of the party. And because they are, ham bones, they are very jovial and jocular and like to often play the jokes on people, but they are ones that will often, talk with others as far as philosophizing their beliefs. They often are involved, in sports or athletics, and they can make very good athletes. And I think Sagittarius, would not be the most ignored of the zodiac signs by any means. Now, going to Capricorn. Capricorn is a feminine or introverted sign. Capricorn, is often, they're very structured, they're very disciplined. They often don't allow, a lot of people in their lives. They have, because keep in mind that, Capricorn being ruled by Saturn, it's a planet of limitation and inhibition. They're very reserved. They often, are dominated by their work and their career. But, keep in mind that Capricorn also has a connection, with the 10th house in astrology, which is about notoriety and recognition. So, it's really, for me, the fact that they do put themselves out there on a level connected with their career, and Capricorn is the sign of status and recognition. So it's really hard to say that they would be the most ignored of the zodiac signs. Now, going to Aquarius. Well, Aquarius is a masculine or extroverted zodiac sign. Aquarius is often like that universal friend. They make friends often wherever they go. And Aquarius could be very humanitarian, selfless, altruistic. They're often involved in groups, clubs, organizations. They do correspond with the 11th house of astrology, which again is connected with groups, clubs, and organizations. Are often win social events. Now, Aquarius, again, is a paradoxical sign. They can make friends easily, but they don't form close connections readily, but they still are very engaging and often have a lot of people around them. They often are involved with ingenious or innovative ideas, and will often share them with others as well. And it's really hard for me to say that Aquarius would be the most ignored of the zodiac signs. Now we're going to go to the zodiac sign Pisces, last but not least. Now Pisces can obviously be viable candidate for the most ignored of the signs, because Pisces is, an introverted, feminine zodiac sign. They can often be reclusive, and, they're often about their seclusion and solitude. So I'm going to tell you which zodiac sign I think it is the most, ignored of the sign. And it's not always, by choice, or it's because people just want to ignore them. But I think I'm going to go with the zodiac sign Pisces, because Pisces is the sign, again, that's connected with isolation, solitude, seclusion. They can often be very reclusive. They are often, ignored, really, mainly because of the life that Pisces chooses to live. Because Pisces, again, is about, their isolation. They often are reclusive and can resort to secluded habits. Keep in mind, Pisces corresponds with the 12th house. In astrology, they're often recharging that emotional battery, which is about, in the process, they're often, spending, have a lot of alone time as a result of this. And, again, it's not because, the fact that they're ignored, it's not really because people are decidingly necessarily to ignore them. It's because of the life they live, which as a result, they wind up being ignored as a result. It's interesting because Pisces is the sign, connected with invisibility, oddly enough, and, because it's ruled by Neptune, which is about, their, Neptune is connected with invisibility. Pisces is often, I don't know if the word is, kind of like Aquarius is unobtrusive, but Pisces is such where they, they're not ones to kind of like, often want to be seen. Pisces is connected with the unseen. It's, it corresponds with the 12th house, again. And the thing, and as a result, because they don't always want to be seen, they could be, ignored as a result, because of that. And I'm not, stereotyping Pisces by any means. You always often got to look at, the contraindicators in the chart. Somebody with a Pisces sun and Leo ascendant naturally will come across as an example as more gregarious and extroverted, compared to the typical, Pisces sun. And also, too, you just have to look at the whole chart in general. Somebody even that has a Pisces ascendant, as an example, but has a preponderance of planets on the top half of the chart, will be more, outgoing and extroverted, more gregarious than the typical Pisces rising. I had a friend of mine that had a Pisces ascendant, but he had like 7, or I believe he had like 7 of the planets on the top half of the chart, and he had, abundance of friends, and was, often socializing with others. I'm sure he needed his time for isolation, given that he was he's a Pisces rising, but still, nonetheless, I saw him as more gregarious than the typical Pisces ascendant. Well, and some of you may wonder, well, what's the significance or purpose of the video to voice my opinion or view on, what is the most, ignored zodiac sign. Well, it could be to, like if you have somebody that has Pisces, sun, moon, or ascendant, and you feel that the person has been ignored or, is isolated too many times, what have you, then you can always, get with him or her and let them know that, you don't need to be isolating nearly as much as you actually are, and get with the person and, socialize with him or her and, help that person out. Because sometimes I believe Pisces may actually go for protracted periods of isolation, which is not always, a positive thing. Having your alone time may be good, but too much of solitude, may not be good, as far, as like mental health may go, as an example. But anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying stay away.